Hi everyone, welcome to the Badge and Beyond podcast. Look, please be aware that during these podcast episodes, we talk about a lot of sensitive issues that may be triggering. We will be talking sometimes about domestic violence, mental health issues, death, animal cruelty, you name it. We're talking about what we've experienced and what our guests have experienced in their day-to-day activities. So, look, please be aware that bad things happen in the world and we're discussing those. If you don't think that that's going to be something that's appropriate for you or the other people around you, please reconsider watching or listening. And look, if you need some assistance with any of the issues we raise, please jump on the web and seek some assistance through the relevant helplines. There are many available, just reach out. Hi everyone, today on the Badge and Beyond, I think you're going to love our guest that we have, a gentleman by the name of Slade. Now, if you're in the job, you've probably come across him. If you're not in the job, you'll probably come across him once you get in. And if you've never been in the cops and don't plan to be, you're going to love the stories. This guy's been called the hard man of the RSPCA. He previously had nicknames of Shotgun, Captain Welfare, and Goat Man. Subject matter expert on
goats,
on not just goats, but on native populations and animal welfare. Professional shooter, former RSPCA inspector, Slade Macklin. So absolute pleasure to have you on the show this morning, Slade. I do have to say, everyone, if it looks like we're a little bit too familiar or I take the piss, he's my brother. You know, you have to either work for us or be related to us to get a spot on the show.
Yeah, there's no nepotism at all. Yeah.
Nepotism, just what we do. Yeah. So, look, I think the interesting thing I have to say about you is you're just this guy that's been around so many different places. You've had this amazing journey into animal welfare. It's been a passion of yours. I remember getting to Campsie Police Station as a sergeant my first day or two. I grabbed the supervisor's phone and I'm going through, because all the resources for like people you need, like RMS services and local council and all the rest of this are in the supervisor's phones. And I'm going through one day and I'm like, no. And there's Slade's number in the phone. Everybody knows him before they know me. And I go through and there's his number again, like it's under a different link. So yeah, look, you're prolific. I've seen you talk to a homeless guy on the street on the same day that you spoke to the CEO of a transnational company, and everybody still treated you like they were best mates with you and you can get along with just about anybody. I've never seen anybody that has an affinity with animals and particularly dogs like you do. So I think it's going to be great for the listeners and the people viewing to hear about how your journey to become who you are today. So, start from the beginning. Let's skip school. That's boring. How did you end up getting into the RSPCA?
I'm going to have to try and live up to this intro. All right. So I always liked animals from a child. We had dogs growing up. I was even allergic to animals as a kid.
Really?
Yeah, I was told, you're never going to be able to work with animals. I was like boy in a bubble, allergic to this, allergic to that. Couldn't sit on the grass, couldn't sit on the chairs, at school because they give me a rash and stuff because of cleaning products. And then ultimately, go to year 8, I wanted to volunteer somewhere. So I went and volunteered at the RSPCA about 18 months or so. Really loved it. Volunteering back then is very different to volunteering now. So I was 14. You couldn't even go there to volunteer now if you were that young.
Yeah.
Things I got exposed to at that age, in that environment, and it's a very different operating structure now, so let's just put that out there, was probably way more than I should have. But it was a good grounding and exposure to what I got to see later on. So I'd be doing selling and assisting with sales to people with their pets on the weekends, seeing dogs that were coming in that had been neglected. Then down the back they had their own on-site crematorium. So back at that time, when was that? 1988. I'm down there helping them with deceased animals. So moving forward from that, finished school, went up in the security industry. That was also very different back then. One of the companies I worked for were both two ex-police officers owned it. So again, a lot of exposure and experience from the company. Just prior to going to them, I worked in the Hyatt hotel. I was there for probably about 12 months. I'd never been to King's Cross in my life before working there. It was like a baptism of fire.
And look, King's Cross back then, I know through my policing career, King's Cross changed. Even though I wasn't stationed there, but you do operations and things. It was vastly different 80s and 90s to what it is now in 2024.
Heroin was huge then.
Yeah.
Like you'd have people coming in to rent a penthouse suite to literally just deal to dealers. The streets were very different. So again, everyone that I was exposed to and I was learning off, they were a lot older than me, had a lot more life experience. Growing up, as you discussed before, our childhood wasn't like that.
Yeah.
So that exposure and just seeing those things every day was a learning curve. And a lot of people I worked for, and I actually got hired because I hadn't come from that environment, didn't know anything about it. So their words were, we'll make you and mould you what we want you to be. Went across another security company, had a great experience there. I was there for years, wound up managing it for a period of time, but not having that life experience, I just got a bit bored. Couldn't see the forest for the trees, left. I then I was doing debt collections and vehicle repossessions. I worked at some clubs. I drove tow trucks for a period of time, which is, in hindsight, now a lot of people that know me now, they're like, what, you drove tow trucks back then? That worked in well with doing repossessions. I didn't have to contract another tow truck driver and I got paid the repo fee, plus got towed as well. Further down the track, Anthony and you guys have done a story before on, when someone broke into the neighbour's car, I got hit by a vehicle. It was around that time I was like, what am I doing with my life? Job comes up at the RSPCA, I apply, I was successful in getting the job as a shelter supervisor. I was in that role for about 10 months and then transferred over to the inspectorate. The inspectorate back then consisted of a lot of the inspectors were ex-police.
Okay.
I didn't come from that background. I'd actually applied on 2 occasions prior, but they had an age limit that you had to be 25 or older to get in. I wasn't 25 when I'd applied previously. They just kept going, you're not old enough, you're not old enough. So I was 26 when I applied this time round, and then that was it. So I was there for a total of about 16 and a half years.
And what's that involve? What does an inspector do?
So back then, special constable, RSPCA inspectors, once they'd done their probationary period, then became special constables.
Yep.
The average day-to-day complaint that is promoted, that is an average complaint a day, dog doesn't have any shelter, dog's chained up, the animal's skinny, people, there's neglect and there's acts of cruelty, people intentionally going out of their way to do bad things to animals because they enjoy it or just for whatever reason there might be. When you start, irrelevant as to what you see and what things you've been exposed to with people, so even policing point of view or security or whatever background you come from, it does not prepare you for what you see there.
Yeah.
So there's a level of violence, and I can't comment now because I've been gone for 6 years, but inspectors are exposed to a level of violence, not only by themselves day to day, that other people wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
You're going to someone's house. Back then, there was no warrant required for us to enter private premises.
Really?
Yeah. You turn up, someone's got a complaint about their dog in the back sunroom, I want to come and have a look at the dog. You're not coming in. Oh, yes, I am. You're obstructing an officer, play authority, identify yourself, and we'll go down that path. You obstruct me, we're going to call the police down, you're going to get arrested.
Yep.
That's very foreign to people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it depends on how you word it and what that narrative is as to whether you're going to wind up having someone want to punch you in the face, or they're going to be like, okay, just come in, I've got nothing to hide anyway, or other people going, I'll let you in because I'd rather have you just come in rather than have 3 cars full of police
Yeah.
and make something out of it.
It's a
Maybe-
very similar skill set to what the police
Yeah,
You can see
yeah.
why a lot of cops would gravitate to that kind
And
of
then, do they want police there coming in to have a look at that? Because what else are they going to see?
Yeah.
I think the thing is too though, did you come across where people feel like you're not the cops, so they can try to stand over you a little more?
Yeah.
And you're on your own.
Yeah.
A lot. And it comes down to how you handle yourself, how you conduct yourself. I'd openly turn around and go, what's this going to look like for you later on? So you can do whatever you want in this interaction right now, but in half an hour, where are you going to be as a result of that? Because I'm not going to go away. Even if I go away, I'm going to come back. And the problem's still here.
Yep.
And you're then a bigger part of the problem.
Yep.
So
Even that, like, that's not what the average person knows to say.
No.
Right? So that's a very specific kind of skill set in managing a conversation.
And hard learned often. You know, like I found you get punched in the face a few times, or someone tries to punch you in the face before you work out the conversational skills of how do I not get punched in the face.
Yep.
Yeah.
I never went in with thinking that I had it over anyone.
Yeah.
I always just, today could be the day I get punched in the face. You never really know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Circling back to when you were 14 and volunteering at the RSPCA, do the things you saw there as a kid sort of, do you think helped sort of shape, your expectations?
Some of the guys that were there that I was, that would look after me, that I was guided by,
Yeah.
I then found out in later years, they were weekend detainees.
Wow.
They were doing community service and weekend detainees, and they were coming out.
Yeah.
I'll openly say these guys, I was a kid.
Yeah.
So the staff and everyone else were fantastic, but they're very animal orientated when I went there. Some of the people that were there when I was 14 were still there when I went back when I was 26, and I worked with them until I left.
Wow.
But some of these other guys that were working there, I didn't realise until later on that that's what their background was. They were weekend detainees, but they were invested in what they were doing. They looked out for my welfare and my safety while I was there. I recall one day being in the stables. It was a gentleman working down there, a haul. I came down and he said, go down to the stables and give Ken a hand. Oh, okay. Go down the stables. His horse just comes out of nowhere. I come in a gate, I shouldn't have gone in. Ken comes out. I still remember him. He used to wear Doc Martens. And he comes out of nowhere and his horse is running at me. He grabs me and literally by the back of the pants and the shirt and throws me out of the yard. I land a bit rough and whatever. I'm carrying a plastic bucket. And it was great. He started teaching me about, horses. He was a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
And he always worked in the stables. So yeah, that exposure and those things I got to see. And probably seeing how some of the animals were coming in back then. It's not really as if I got to go home and discuss any of it with anyone else, because no one else at that age had any exposure to that. My schoolmates didn't have any exposure to that, so I couldn't go to school and say, hey, I did this on the weekend and this is what I saw.
Yeah.
It was valuable. But I also don't recommend it. There's a whole lot of things I don't recommend. Like exposure to things as an inspector, people that want to work with animals because they like animals.
Yeah.
And it's a catch-22. You have people are there focusing on the animals, but your problem are people.
Yeah.
Sometimes violent people.
Yeah.
And people do those things to animals, or are neglectful or whatever. They're not good people. And they're doing other things. The animals are this much of a problem of everything else they're doing that's illegal.
Yep.
So having acknowledged and seen that and appreciated that really early on made it easier for me. As much as I didn't want it to be like this, when newer staff would start, and I've been there a long time, I would acknowledge the fact that what I thought was really bad when I started was nowhere even registering on the radar anymore as being bad. So a new inspector would start, you'd take them out, they'd have a training officer effectively that they'd be partnered up with. And you'd go and they'd assist you on complaints. You basically tell them how to read people, what to look at, where does that register, what are the offences. The longer you're there, the more things you see and you're exposed to. And I imagine it's the same, you know, for people who are have been in the police or in the force. It just doesn't. It's not that it doesn't register. It's still an offence, but it's not as bad.
Yeah.
So I would still go, hey, that's bad. But they'd come back and, oh my goodness, I saw this and this is really bad. Oh, okay. And I think whether it be, I can only speak from my own experience, there were sometimes I didn't think I was the best person and appropriate for someone new to be sent out with due to me thinking going down that path. It's not as bad. I should have probably acknowledged it or seen it a little bit more for what it was for them, because it was bad. It's just that I'm hardened to it now. You see it all the time. You expect it.
But I think sorry to cut you off, Danny, that's a really good point for people to take away for frontline services like you were doing for ambos, cops, fireys, doctors, nurses, whatever, is that's your day to day. And it builds over time. So I've said it before, your first couple of weeks, your first year in the job, you're like, what's all this stuff? And then, but like you finished up as a team leader, which would equate to like a sergeant in the cops. You're running a team of people. But by that stage, you've seen just about everything, and you kind of feel like you're not going to find something that's beyond what you already know. But to survive and operate, you can't dwell on the little things. You have to find a way to process it, or like many people do, push it down and then move forward.
That's it. At ECI, can you just don't last.
I'm just putting myself in the, it's easy to draw the parallels between policing and being like an RSPCA inspector. But can you give me an example or two of what comes to mind on like really poignant moments in that part of your journey? So when you've gone to a home investigating whatever, what are the ones you always sort of think about, like, wow, that could have gone really, really, really bad?
Not even so much bad, but realising that what I thought was just normal wasn't. So going to a job for the police, it was deceased.
Yep.
I turn up, I get out, I've got a P2 disposable mask and a full face, and I used to judge basically which one am I going to put on subject to how close could I get to the house before I started smelling it.
Yeah.
Sounds really bad, but
no, I get it.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I walk up, there's a probationary constable out the front. I referenced, the animals inside, how long had the person been there, had the animals, been hungry and started, feeding the, Now my term for that is very gruff, and it's just, how you cover things with black humour or whatever.
I don't think you should use that term.
No, we're not going to.
I can see where you're going.
We're not going.
Yeah.
I won't use it. But the reaction and response from the constable was very...
Yeah.
And then I walked in, did the job. Coming out after that is like, this is just normal.
Yeah.
But it's not normal. This is a police officer that's signed up, gone through the academy, been on the road, in a back then they were lax, but now I know they're packs, but in an area that was not the best area in the world, so they've got some exposure. And I'm like, I'm talking like this, and this is a bit off-putting for me. I need to regroup here. Job-wise,
What was, when you went into that circumstance, that deceased, why was what you were saying so off-putting? Describe that scene, because I know that story.
there's
What
a
was
couple that are similar, but basically, you're looking at someone that's been deceased for days.
Yep.
The animal's not had anything to eat. For me, I want to help the animal, but the animal in itself is also a biohazard. Then once it's been jumping around on the deceased person, you've got a crime scene potentially. I have no idea. Like, I don't always know when I turn up, so I'd assume it was a crime scene.
Yep.
And in that way, walk in, don't touch anything, get the animal out. What time they get there, provide a statement, do whatever. but how graphic it could sometimes be, the situation before the animal may have even started doing what it's doing. Are the injuries to the person subject to what the animal did, or were they already existent and then the animal exacerbated that, or did the animal not have anything to do with it? I mean, we picked up a little dog that they thought the owner had been shot in the face. They hadn't.
Yep. Dog you needed to eat.
Yeah.
And see, on that point, I remember very junior in my, like it was early in my probationary constable. We'd gone to a deceased and come back, and there was talk in the muster room about a deceased that my officer had also gone to, and they were making comments about her, and I was trying to work out why were they sort of mocking her, and then they told me the story. And what had happened was, prior to, I don't know if it was maybe a couple of months before, she'd gone to a deceased with another officer, and again the deceased had been dead for a long period of time, and no one had asked about this person. You know how it gets, some people just solitary life.
Yeah.
Anyway, they had a dog. I don't know what breed it was, and upon forcing entry into the premises and locating this deceased, let's just say a significant part of the body was missing, and the dog had nothing else to feast on, right? So they sort of, for survival, the dog had eaten up to a certain point of their owner, who'd been deceased for a long time. And there were two remarkable sort of things in this scenario. One of them was that it was interesting to everybody where the dog stopped eating. So like almost 50% exactly of the body left. And they were finding like it was just like it looked like a surgical sort of cut. It was just amazing. But the other thing was, the officer went outside and was crying after speaking with the RSPCA because they were going to put the dog down, right? And it was like interesting commentary on the human condition, and we're not crying over the human who's lived on their own for so long that no one noticed they'd been dead for such an extended period of time. But the officer got really upset that we had to put this dog down because it ate half its owner, sort of thing. And I found that very, do you know what I mean? It was a bit different.
So from my experience, looking at that, and obviously I've never been a police officer, I never want to be a police officer, based on the point of view, a percentage of people ring 000 because they don't want to deal with their own problems. There's another percentage that ring 000 and want the police because they created their own problem and they're worried about what's going to happen as a consequence of them creating a problem with someone else.
Yep.
I like animals. No animal woke up in the morning
Yep.
and goes, I'm going to mess with someone today.
Yep.
So they're all, every single job I went to, the animals are a victim.
Yep.
Whether it's by misadventure or someone did something wrong.
Yeah.
When you, from my experience dealing with police, when police go out, they go through the academy, death tag. They're taught to shoot offenders if that's the need. When it comes to euthanasia of animals, none of them want to go and shoot an animal.
Yep.
That animal's not posing a threat. There's a very small amount of training that goes into it for the officers.
Yep.
So then there's a lot of stress on them. It's often in a public space. I've seen officers break down or not want to do that as a result of, this is not what I want to do. They'll carry it, even if they do it later on, it's still bothering them. And that doesn't always go right, because when it comes to shooting at people, it's volume, I suppose. When it comes to animals, it's accuracy. People at centre scene mass, animals you want to try and...
Exactly.
You're not stopping a threat. The animal's not a threat. You're trying to euthanize it. So basically what I'm trying to get at is the emotional attachment and the impact it has on police to deal with animals. They're used to being hardened, I suppose, in dealing with people, and that person, if they were alone, maybe they were alone for a reason, maybe they weren't. But the dog didn't choose to be there. Someone put in that situation.
Correct.
So, and I had heard that story where other people would say if a dog had been or an animal had been in that situation with an owner that was deceased, it was automatically getting put to sleep as a result of maybe consuming something. That's not true. So, I don't know how many animals I picked up from those premises that they did get rehomed. It's not as if they're like Cujo going to sit there and watch you and wait for you to go to sleep and start numbing on your ear. So that was, one of like some of my experiences that we did more that most people probably don't realise how much exposure you might get to that. And I didn't think that was something that everyone should get exposed to as a team leader. In the end, I don't want to say I was happy to go to those jobs, but it was probably easier in a way for me to go because I knew what I was going to get, rather than opening the lid, so to speak, and exposing everyone to it. Does everyone need that trauma? Is everyone okay with death, all those type of things? No. Other jobs you go to just stay with you just the same as they would with police. Someone that's done something so horrifically bad, there's no reason. You could literally picture the person doing it prior to you turning up going, so for me, what I carry even now is, what was it feeling like? I can picture the animal going through that. I still find it really traumatic. So,
how about for your own personal safety? Did you have examples where you believed you were in danger yourself in those scenarios?
I'd gone to places where I thought it was going to go really bad, and you turn up. You can't always have a second officer. We weren't on we didn't have portable radios until a few years before I left, when we got on the GRN, the Government Radio Network. That was complex in itself because they're a charity. They then got to pay for the handheld units and then pay monthly subscriptions to get on there, and then try and implement a process for someone to monitor the network all the time. And so prior to that, you got your phone. And you've got your appointments, but...
And you're not carrying a pistol as an RSPCA inspector, you're carrying battens and handcuffs.
Battens and handcuffs, and we weren't carrying OC spray. We'd carry citronella spray that was, to be used on the dogs or an animal. So very much, it was pretty much what was going to come out of your mouth, and being situation aware or having local knowledge. And you're dealing with people with mental health.
Yeah.
We're going to hoarders' houses. People like haven't seen them for days. Are they having an episode in there? But no one's ringing up the police or the ambulance. They're ringing up because this guy hasn't taken his dog for a walk for days.
Yeah, no one cares about the person, so
you
but
turn
they care
up for
about
an
the dog.
animal-related complaint, but there's a serious issue with the person. They're having a mental health episode and they barricaded themselves in the house. I'm not coming out.
I guess going to the investigation side of it, I know you were involved with quite a traumatic ongoing animal offence.
Yeah.
One that occurred in the city. Do you want to step us through that
so
a little bit? You don't have to. I know it's...
So the short version is, we start having rabbits turning up throughout the city that have been cut up. There's bits and pieces of them here and there.
Who was the informant when you first got that information?
Oh, it was members of the public initially. It was people like, I found bits and pieces of rabbits here, and then King Street Wharf, I found some down there. It's like, okay. Then there was up near Kent Street and Barrack Street, up around there. Okay, so we start looking into it. One of my colleagues, it's his job. He then gets called to a building, vacant floor of this multi-storey building, where they thought it was a dead cat at first, and it wasn't. It was a rabbit, dead in the public toilets. Cleaners found it. So we start piecing all these things together, and you realise they're not wild rabbits, like they're domestic rabbits that someone's
breeding them or something.
Or doing these things to. So the automatic thing is, people are like, all right, so what's the automatic path you go down? The vacant floor in a building, is it a homeless person? They're out on the street, the others, they're in laneways, but the volume of them.
How many do you think would have, in that investigation, how many rabbits do you think?
All up in total?
Yeah.
So jumping forward, giving an idea at the end, when we went to the offender's house, there was bits and pieces of rabbits that were thrown out the multi-storey, like they had a multi-storey house, like 3-level house, and they were just thrown out on a rubble pile out the back of their house, down the escarpment. So there would have been easy over 20 rabbits that you could have identified as individual rabbits there.
Plus the ones.
Plus the ones that, and then an untold amount that we didn't know about.
Yeah.
So anyway, my colleague's going down one path of investigation. I was curious. Then he and I made an inquiry with thinking, all right, they're domestic, local pet shops. So we started working a circle from in to out. We get a hit at Birkenhead Point. Then we get a hit for another pet shop down in Pets on Broadway. And it's this one, long story short, it's this one guy coming in on his corporate card. They're like, this guy keeps coming in buying rabbits, putting them on his corporate Amex or whatever. Okay. And then, the giveaway too for Birkenhead Point, there was a box found not far from where a rabbit was found with the pet store name on it.
Right.
So this inquiry is made as to whose card it is. We then find out the guy's not a nobody. He owns a business down in just off Barrack Street there in the city, opposite the Orient Hotel. I think it's the Orient Hotel or something like that. And we start going down that path. You start seeing more transactions. He's going in and out. We decide to do surveillance on the building. Now, I admit I had a bit of bee in my bonnet because I'm like, this guy's just buying rabbits and torturing them, like literally torturing them.
Yeah.
Like rabbits were found, cut up. The post-mortem said they were cut up while they were alive. So I was, for about 3 weekends in a row, I sat near the building where he was at. Took all my gear, like all my work stuff and everything, but it wasn't approved surveillance.
And is this an RSPCA only investigation or other?
So police have been spoken to at this stage,
Yeah.
but they're not involved.
Okay.
They're not doing anything. We're just doing our own thing.
Yeah.
The chief at that time was ex New South Wales Police. The deputy chief was ex AFP.
Yeah.
When she found out I'd been out there doing surveillance, like she was exceptional in her role. She was great to deal with, but she was so angry. She was so angry. I understand why you did, but that's not how we do things here. I went, okay. Well, okay.
Did you put in a claim for overtime then?
No, that was the thing. I said, better ask for forgiveness and permission.
Yeah.
And it was after that, with what I'd been looking at, what the other officer that was a primary was looking into, we went to the police and said, this is bigger than what we think it is. We're going to need some help. There were some hurdles there, trying to get them on board, and then one of the DOs, he was like, no, we'll help you get whatever. So they had a surveillance vehicle that was all kitted out with a camera in it that they could just park somewhere. So they committed that to the project. We had this one night where they got access to a building opposite. It was the actual Occidental Hotel, I think it was, not the Orient. Officers were up on level 1, so it was the next level where they could see the offender.
So they would be looking across the street from the windows
they could see
into
the window.
Yeah.
I was over the road at a little 7-Eleven on the corner, wearing my. It was winter, so it was pretty cold. I'm wearing a puffy FUBU jacket back then, trying to blend in with everyone on the street.
In. Yeah.
I was doing a good job. I thought I was at least. The briefing we went to, briefing was great, but there was other plainclothes officers that were committed to another job.
Yep.
And they were going to come down later on. So there's myself, a couple other inspectors, some other police marked out, the detectives opposite looking in, and then we see this guy coming down the street. He's like carrying his box, and you can see him fixate on his box. He's got a little, bag, but he's on his box upstairs. The kicker was, couldn't go and do anything until he was seen to do something.
Yeah.
That really bothered me.
Yeah.
Like you're literally waiting for him to commit an offence and torture something and watch him do it to then go and get him.
Yeah.
When the process of all this happening, I'm standing out in front of 7-Eleven. The crew that weren't at the briefing saw me come in and out of 7-Eleven twice and then disappear around the corner, just standing there. They could see me, no one else could. So next thing, these guys just turned up out of nowhere.
Oh no.
And, proceed to want to pat me down.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
are you doing? What are you guys doing? I didn't know who they were. I thought they were just going to be there to try and really? You gonna try to roll me or something?
Yeah.
And then one of them pulls his badge out. I went, oh, okay. I go to get my jacket. Don't move. Hang on, mate. Hang on. Let me just open it. My badge is in there. And he goes, what are you doing? So I'm working on the same job. You guys working on the job over the road? Yeah. I went, I'm working on the same job as you. I'm one of the inspectors. And I'm like, oh, you didn't look like an inspector. I went, I didn't want to look like an inspector.
At some point, we didn't have a big sign.
In the middle of that happening, the detectives over the road are like, it's all happening, he's leaving. So he then leaves the building, goes down the back laneway, it's all on, we're running down the laneway, everyone's chasing him, I jump in a car to go down there. He gets tackled. They grab him, they open his bag and find a rabbit in there. It's alive, but it's been tortured, it can't breathe properly. As we walk back up the lane, there's another rabbit dead in the doorway. There's a building in the laneway, so the surveillance crews just couldn't see because being on the same level, they couldn't see exactly what he was doing. So he'd been up there for the whole duration when everyone's going, oh no, he's not doing anything, just torturing these rabbits. I quickly go into the office, they open his office drawer and there's another rabbit in the drawer that he's left in there, and he's messed up too. So we got rabbit, and I was in a different car, I didn't have all my gear, I couldn't euthanize it straight away.
Yeah.
All the inspectors were euthanasia technicians back then, but because I was in a Toyota Camry, I borrowed to go for that night.
Yeah.
I didn't take any.
Yeah.
So we're trying to race these rabbits off to a vet. We proceed to execute warrants on his house throughout the morning, so that's, I think it was a Friday night or something late, so then trying to get that the next morning for his house, and that's where we're finding bits and pieces of rabbits' feet, you name it.
Wow.
Basically, he had a drug habit. He'd go buy the rabbits straight, and then go back to his office, get high, and then torture them. So my theory is there was intent there.
Yeah.
It's not as if he was just doing it as a result of,
No.
but he claimed drug psychosis. Goes to court, sits up the back, starts eating his carrot.
Starts eating a carrot.
Yeah, starts eating a carrot, thinks it's all good. His business partner, none ever really looked at the business partner. They just assumed he wasn't involved. His business partner was the brother of someone who was an A-lister in Sydney at the time. Certain information came out on social media where women started talking about what his interaction with them was like in the dating scene.
Yeah.
He then moved back to New Zealand and...
So what happened with the court case here in Australia?
Oh, he got off. Drug psychosis.
So just like Section 10
Yeah,
bond, what
just
are we...
a bond.
Wow.
See you later.
Wow.
And before we go to his time in New Zealand, the interesting thing is there's so much literature on animal cruelty and, psychopathy and serial offenders and murderers and, like, if you're willing to do that to an animal, how far away from you, like a living being, be it animal or human.
Extremely dangerous, man.
Yeah, like the risk
wasn't
factors.
poor. Like his house was at Tamarama. The back wall, because he was renovating, was missing. So you could literally walk to the back wall of the living room and you could have walked off the cliff.
Yeah.
He was just walking to the back wall and then looking out, just throwing bits and pieces of animals out. And he ultimately went back to New Zealand and most recently was caught crawling through someone's backyard trying to get their rabbits.
And this is the...
Oh, I
The
think he
thing-
may have even changed his name.
I think is that the second time he got done in New
Yeah,
Zealand?
that's the second time he's been done over there.
So you've got a guy that's like potentially murdered, tortured hundreds of animals. And yet...
He walks amongst us.
Yeah. Like he's a guy that, because of that, he doesn't make a register with the police, right? He's clearly got these risk factors that make him a risk in the community, but is unmonitored.
Are there conditions where, for example, now, like you make a good point on the register, is there something that sort of RSPCA, sort of, and other organisations can put in, you cannot own a pet?
So there is, and there's been changes to legislation since I left. So there's more provisions there now, but the RSPCA and the inspectors and their team looking after their prosecution, their legal counsel can only get what the magistrate's going to put down. And that's it. It's not that the laws aren't there and the penalties aren't present. They are. It's a matter of
enforcement.
Yeah. What's the maximum penalty he could have got for that?
Back then, what was it? 2 years. I think it was like 5 years or something like that.
Yeah, because it was an
6 months
aggravated
2 or 5 years
offence,
or something like that. Looking at it back then, but you'd have to make it per offence and all sorts of things like that.
Was there much media on this?
So a normal animal cruelty offence back then, maximum penalty was $5.5 grand and 6 months in.
Yeah.
And I think it was 2 years for an ag aggravated cruelty.
Yeah.
But no one ever really got that. It's, so your jobs like that.
How did that make you feel?
I don't know, just bad. I'm just like thinking about it, puts my hand in the bottom of the bucket and starts pulling things up because, it's. I know in the scheme of things, with what goes on in the world and that, people are like, that's not horrifically bad compared to what I'm going on overseas or to an individual person, or like under a job last week full of police, it's a child abuse matter to recover animals out of there. Now those animals, they're not in great condition. There was, dead reptiles there and animals just being generally neglected as well. Is that as bad as what's happening to those children? No. But exposure to that long term, bothers me.
Of course.
There's other things. You just see people do things like if they can do that to an animal. Someone grabbed a German Shepherd pup I turned up to. I thought it just jumped a railing in the block of units in the belt. No. Someone literally put the lead through the handrails, held the dog over there, and then clipped it on, and then watched it hang itself.
Yeah.
Intentionally.
Yeah.
So, how does it make me feel? Not really good.
Yeah.
Long term.
And for a perspective, I get in a lot of these institutions, there's a lot of talk about now more so now than it was when you and I were working in law enforcement. But there's this perspective of, we got to look after their mental health. How much mental health, how much treatment did you get? How much offer of, hey, this is unfair to you, you need it, you go get, you talk to anybody about this?
I would say it was made available. I think some of the biggest challenges that I even had our CEO at one stage say, hey, after saying I want you to go and have a chat to someone, which was appreciated. I appreciated it. I still do. Like, it's not that they just weren't interested. And I imagine this applies to the police as well. If you're going to go talk to someone, hang on, let me rephrase this. I went to a place that they were signing on to provide counselling to staff, and they want to know what we're exposed to. And they want me to just be very blunt and brutal over what some of the things people might share with them. No filter. So when you've got people there that are going to be listening to stories and things that have happened to staff, and then they don't want to hear anymore and they want to leave, and this is in a big boardroom, we're having this conversation, you realise how bad some of those things are. So those people don't come from that world.
Yep.
I'm not saying that they should, but then for myself, the value in me talking to someone.
Well, it's very hard to talk to someone when they say, don't tell me anymore.
Well, that, right? Or I had one person tell me, why don't I go take drama classes?
What?
Yeah, the person told me I should step out and go take drama classes. And it was just basically a debriefing I was trying to go for after seeing some.
Go do an interpretive dance.
I cannot fathom.
And you know what? I don't blame. That's that one person. So I don't think all of them are like that.
Yeah.
But when anyone that's in a frontline service or doing anything goes to talk to someone, maybe he had a reason for doing that. Maybe that was like his life. He did that himself. This guy did that himself. So I don't know. I think my experience as well, there's not as many animal welfare in that field is female dominated. I would openly say it's because there's not as many males don't have the same level of empathy as what you see in women.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, not all the time, but it's just different.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, it was difficult for anyone that works in it because you're sort of like, oh, is this as bad? Other people that have it worse, or I just need to put a lid on it. Tomorrow's going to be, you know.
Well, I guess that's the thing, though, isn't it? Hate to reference it in in this way, but Seinfeld, I think it's Newman, the mailman in Seinfeld, says something is the reason why everybody goes postal is because it never stops.
Yeah.
It just keeps coming. And it doesn't matter how much you do today, it comes again tomorrow. Yeah, that's a really good analogy for frontline work. It doesn't matter how hard you work today, you'll never clear it, right? It'll always be there tomorrow.
You look at the 6 degrees of separation. So the job you spoke about, where Anthony went up getting pinned down the front yard by the offender trying to shoot him the night before, when they get to the crime scene and the girl's, you know, deceased on the lounge room floor after being shot by the offender, I get a phone call to come and remove the animals.
Yeah.
So I go to the apartment where the offender's been, the dog and the cat's there, they don't want to leave. And then the next morning, I'm talking to Anthony, like, oh, hey, you know, he's like, oh, I'm about to go do this entry and knock on this guy's house. Surveillance, we'd watch it all night, he's not there. Back then, we were working on the same channels.
Yeah.
Next thing I'm hearing, shots fired, you know, all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, oh, what the, you know.
Yeah.
It was it's just, you don't really know what anything can lead to.
And with the work that you did as an inspector, is there stuff that you're very lucky that they called you then, that you'd be able to sort of disrupt something really serious from happening, or your intervention stopped?
There was probably things, because it was animal related, that I would see if I went to addresses, that if I was wearing a different coloured uniform, I wouldn't have seen. So people just like, they're here for the dog or the cat.
Yep.
But they're not to know what background or where you come from.
Yeah. What are some of those things?
So we turned up to a noise complaint for a dog sound like it was in distress at Alexandria.
Yep.
It was a factory unit. Factory units, we don't require a warrant for entry because they're commercial premises. Dog sounded like it was in distress. Did a quick address check. Told us we should get police. Short time later, probably 6 cars from Raptor turned up.
Yep.
Strikeless Raptor, and it was HA's or a Hell's Angels clubhouse.
Yep.
Then they knew we all turned up because they had cameras everywhere that were live feed.
Yep.
So then they all turned up. So they would let me in to go and have a look at the dog, but they were not, well, no police coming.
Yeah.
But then their understanding, they just thought, oh, well, you're not an authorised officer, you're not an RSPCA inspector, you can't come in. I'm like, I'm terribly sorry, guys. They're authorised officers under the Act as well. They can come in with us.
Yeah.
Subsequently, I think 2 days later, the whole place got breached for fire rigs or something like that.
Yeah.
But you get those type of jobs.
I know you had a particular interest in dogfighting rings too.
Yeah, so it's not something you get a lot of information on. We used to have one day a year, or for a week a year, it'd be called Operation Champion, where they'd have people ring in and give you tip-offs. Cockfighting was more prevalent than what dogfighting was. Does it happen? Yes. Is it as prevalent as what people think? No. There's a lot of myths and things about it. One operation we conducted was on old information. We'd already done an operation 6 months prior to, but the same informant rang a different, went down a different path to report it. So it goes back to organised crime. And we had everything invested in that. There was police, there was Pol Air, there was dog squad. Nothing happened.
Yeah. And I guess that is one of the problems, and I think we've seen the same thing where people give information to the police and somehow they expect they're going to see the investigation on the news or they're going to be told about it, even though they make an anonymous complaint. So when nothing seemingly to them happens, they go to another agency or another, they try to find a way around And you invest resources thinking it's good intelligence, not realising it's been,
It was interesting. I had a lot of good opportunities. I was put through the proper police investigators course.
And I think on that, can I just say something I've neglected in the intro is some of your history. So you are potentially one of the most experienced dart operators, or what do we call it?
Chemical mobilisation or darting animal, tranquilising animals.
And you've done that. I know now in your current role, in your current company, you have a vet on staff that assists you. You're done that. You're a swift water technician, so you can rescue people in swift water situations and floods.
Yeah.
You've done like training for operation around helicopters.
Yep.
What's some of the other weird and wonderful courses?
So I was involved in. This is where it comes down to exposure. For a period of time, I'll provide training to Fire and Rescue New South Wales for all their rescue operators. Prior to me going in, they'd get lectured by one of the helicopter crews. And then I would go in for an hour or two. I'd talk about technical animal rescue. I'm a specialist in that. It'd be like, all right, what's on your truck? How can you use it and apply that to animals? You see the fireys often have pocket lines, little ropes and that.
Yep.
Right, how can you make multiple leads out of that? There's 2 different types of muzzles you can apply to an animal using that. Your patient protection shield, how can you use that to put over an animal? Talk about spinal injury management. That wasn't a thing back in the day. People were like, oh, I can't do anything about it. Dog can't walk. Well, it can. In the process of rescuing or moving an animal, you can exacerbate that injury just like you can with a person. No, you're not going to be able to put a collar on them, but managing their movement and that. So we talk about that. So in turn for me providing that service, I got a lot of exposure. I was part of Task Force 1, which was one of the urban search and rescue task forces for Fire and Rescue New South Wales and their canine program at the very beginning. Their very first ever Swiftwater course that they ran out of Penrith, I was lucky enough to get a place on that. And then down the track, I did my technician's course with the Police Rescue Squad. Because everyone went up working really close. I'd ring different agencies up, hey, can you come and give me a hand on a job? And it was vice versa. They'd ring me and, hey, can you come and give us a hand on a job? So it was a 24-hour-a-day thing. I didn't care. I'd promote the fact you can ring me 24 hours a day. If you've got a problem, I'll come. But they did the same thing for me. That created opportunities. From that, that's obviously like after leaving the RSPCA, I carried on those services. So during the floods, we're contracted by state government. We had three boats going. I'm a Swiftwater tech, had another Swiftwater tech on. We had a tilt tray operating to transport, and we're helping with helicopter, when they're sling loading. So I've got another staff member and myself that are, qualified to work around helicopters safely. So we provide a really broad range of services. Unfortunately, some of that comes down to firearm euthanasia. We provide those services as well. I
know during the bushfires was it the 2019?
Yeah, so what started out as animal welfare services and turned into, we provide deployment capability services. So if a group or organisation wishes to send their own staff, we'll provide, we can go and tranquilise animals or euthanize them if they're, that badly injured. But if they want to send staff that may not have that exposure or experience into environments that aren't safe, we'll manage that environment for them. So I can pick and choose who I send and ensure whoever goes out, they get a briefing. We provide all the comms gear and head out in the field. We have a paramedic on staff as well. So, yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah. You were one of my favourite, I've got a couple of favourite stories. One of the ones I loved was when you rescued, was it a litter of pups, and then they were trying, and you decided you were going to save one from euthanasia when they decided. Tell us about that story.
Litter of pups, they get dumped at Cecil Hills in the bush. That was before it was quite developed, and they were all just staffy, mastiffy cross dogs. Like all had mange, like fur loss. Mange isn't that it's simple to treat. There's 2 different types without going into it. it's a slow and longer recovery. Obviously, with the volume of animals you have coming in, they need to go out into care or be kept in place. I bring them all in.
How many were there?
Oh, there was like 8 or something like that. I bring them in. There's a veterinary assessment, and the vet's like, "Mate, can't save them. Like, they're all really, really bad." I wasn't having my best day or my best moment, so I walked into it's a vet that now is a consultant in my business. I walked into one of the labs where the vets have been doing the test. I shut the door. I'm like, "This isn't okay. This is PG version."
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can't see explain that. Okay.
PG,
Gentlemen.
PG version. It was more like, "Are you
Yeah.
serious?" Da da da. So I was really, really upset about it, you know. And it wasn't just that one case. It's a whole lot of things that lead up to
Your bucket's full.
Yeah, your bucket's a bit full.
Yeah.
It's probably an hour later, same vet walks up in the office and goes, "Oh, it's really bad, is it? It's not okay? Well, no worries. Well, here you are. Take that one. You look after it. You treat it. There's your new dog." Turned around, walked out. So I wound up having Phoebe for about 11 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was she the one that you stood in front of the doorway for? Where they were putting down.
No, there was another, like, there was a few moments I wasn't really.
Well, okay. Well, let me tell. The PG
version
version for that is, and this is one of the stories I love, is because if you pulled this stuff somewhere else, you'd get sacked. You'd probably get reprimanded at least. So Captain Welfare over here pulls in another litter of pups, brings them in, and move on to the next job. And by my understanding, they'd started putting some of them down. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And someone rings him and says, "Hey, those pups you just brought in? The clinic's putting them down." Now, Captain Welfare isn't going to have anything to do with that because he knows dogs and he knows some of them can be saved. So he walks back in, slams the door, grabs the pups, stands in front of the door and says, "Anybody who wants to put these things to death has to go through me. Who wants it?" Effectively. Maybe again, that's the PG version. And those dogs were miraculously saved. And funnily enough, where I'm like, when I got this story, I'm like, "So you're sacked now, right?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "How is that possible?" He's like, "I was thinking I was going to get sacked." And they said, "Oh, we understand you're just passionate."
I like
I was
it.
very lucky, and in that circumstance, there was something that was happening without the knowledge of someone else in the shelter.
Okay.
So, whilst their reasoning behind it on the numbers and what had happened with the animals, I understand that.
Yeah.
But no one had actually asked someone else that was in a management position, "Hey, is this all good to go?" So, do I condone it? No. Was it my best day? No.
Was he cup full?
How? So what would be hard is, and I feel I have to go back and apologise to people. A couple of people that I had blow-ups with.
Yeah.
We're great friends. There's another vet that her and I worked together during the bushfires. She came down. We get along brilliantly, but she's as passionate as what I am. So when she'd blow up at me, I'd be okay with that. I'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't take it personally.
Yeah.
That's not something you can do with everyone because a whole lot of people be like, "Where's the keyboard? Send an email.
Yeah.
You're gone."
Yeah.
So I appreciate that there was understanding there that you can't turn around and send someone to go out and deal with this all day, every day, and then run the risk of having them come back in, the animals get euthanized. Like I nearly drowned on one job saving a sheep. Brought it back in, it was pregnant, had twins. The thing slipped over in the clinic. 2 days later, broke his leg, they euthanized it.
Yeah.
That's on me. Like, it wasn't that I wasn't being safe in the process of trying to save it.
Yeah.
It was just a huge
What's the
sheep.
process of it? So how do you get deployed for something like that?
A job would come in, or in certain circumstances, one of my current clients now was a client from back there.
Yeah.
They just ring up and go, "Hey, we've got this animal trapped in a waterway."
I think the thing is though, and this is why that story I told makes so much sense, is that there's very few people, I think, like you, but there are people in all frontline services that have that level of passion and drive. I mean, I once christened you with the nickname for about a year of the Feline Jesus.
Oh, we resuscitated the cat.
That's right. But you resuscitated a cat by yourself from the site whilst you reloaded like gear on the car that was like, so you one-handed like trying to pack everything up, trying to get the cat back to the office so it can be properly resussed while it's agonal gasping, which is like on the doorstep of death. In fact, it'd probably already been stamped by St. Peter. And you managed that all the way from, what suburb was it?
We were over, like, we're still in, like, not far, Punch Bowl way.
Yeah,
But
so
I still
Punch
had
Bowl to
I had to
Yaguna.
drive while I was bagging it.
Yeah, so you're
Back
giving
to-
it oxygen while you're driving, trying to get through, and you don't have lights and sirens, so
No.
you're just doing whatever. And I remember you had to pull it out, so you had to put a ladder back and do all the rest of the
Yeah.
stuff. And you brought that back and saved that cat. I know there was another animal, I don't know what. So what was the one,
in the city?
there was the one in the fiery said they just
So-
wouldn't get.
So,
And no, not bagging fireys, I'm
no,
just
so
saying
it
that
wasn't,
there's-
we all agreed on what the outcome was. State library. Everyone here knows those little plover birds. Their parents are real defensive. They live on the ground. One of the chicks falls down a 100 mil pipe. State library out the back. Can't get it out. It's gone down around the corner. There's no way we're going to be able to recover it. We decided, all right, we're going to have to flush it out. Knowing full well, drowning is not an acceptable form of euthanasia, but it's going to die a really slow, painful death. Let's put it straight out, however far away the drain is, go and check. If it's not dead, then it's in a really bad way, we euthanize it, but better than dying a slow, painful death.
Yeah.
Get a fire truck down. It's a police rescue, their allocated zone, so they're there. The fireys come down, put water out, flush it out. Chick comes out dead. I timed how long had it been there. Oh, hell knows, maybe we can bring it back. So we brought it back.
And what do you mean by brought it back?
It's dead.
What'd you do?
Literally, made this thing was tiny.
Yeah.
And made a little face mask, airtight face
MacGyver
mask.
style.
I was going to say,
Out of it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I still
People
have a
know
photo.
who MacGyver is. That's a
I still have a
MacGyver.
photo in the phone of
Yeah.
this little plover chick
Yeah.
on the bag, and all the fireys and all the cops and all that standing around, and you see it suddenly get eyes open, and he's like, yes.
That's amazing.
What was, now there was a,
And everyone was just working together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know for a lot of people that's just a bird, but it's everyone. For me, it's not just a bird; it's a living thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it sounds really. In some circumstances, I don't feel like I have any more right than what that does.
Yeah.
So I should try everything I can, if I have that ability, to save it or put it out of its misery or whatever.
wasn't there a drain pipe like so many meters underground that no one else could get up?
So there's confined space. Cat stuck up there in the middle of Blacktown, so there was more needles than anything else up this pipe.
How big was the diameter of the pipe?
It was pretty small. Like, yeah, it's pretty small. So ultimately, I had to get the fireys and that out, go down. I had to get a separate line attached with BA to get like 30 something meters, 40 meters up the pipe for this kit, and it was just walking around in circles. Half an hour after we get it out, torrential rain, whole thing floods. Well,
So, but with that, so the pipe was what? How deep in the ground was the pipe?
easy 2 meters.
So you're not going to dig that out even with an excavator real quick. How far did you, and were you crawling on your belly?
Yeah, like you couldn't even tilt your head up properly. It was that small in there.
So how far along the pipe did you have to go?
30 something meters.
30 meters. How often do you go to the gym, Slade? The funny thing is, I know he doesn't have a gym membership, and I know a daily workout routine isn't on his schedule, but he's a guy that goes, oh, the fireys won't go in, I'm not going to let it die. And honestly, for me, that is like a nightmare and a half thinking about, in my head, all I think about, I'm going to get 5 meters up that pipe, I'm going to be stuck, no one's going to pull me out.
Yep.
You rock in 30 meters on your guts with no formal, training in confined space
Oh,
rescue.
so I have that training. No, I'm qualified for that. It's not that I'm not qualified. So
I don't care if you're qualified or not, I'd still freak out.
No.
That's like a
the thing,
nightmare
it's
for me.
like when everyone's like, oh, you meant to be down there when the fires turn up. I'm like, yeah, I'm qualified. We're good. I just need, it's too tight to put a BA set on. So you need an independent airline to basically go up. And we gas detect it and everything like that. But the actual length of crawling in there, that tight, it's not.
I think I would have had a heart attack or when you're
I think
in
the
there.
cat would have to save me.
Yeah. I mean, I would have just been calling the fireys just for drag me out and tell my wife that I loved her after I'd gone. Like, I'd just given up.
I felt sorry for the fireys on some occasions because I was at a job at Lakemba. We crawled in. I'd gone in there for kittens that were trapped underneath this derelict old house and found these old bottles. Once I got in, oh, great. Just make sure I don't move them. You can see all the old chemicals in there. I get the kittens in. I realise I can't get out while I'm holding them.
Yeah.
So I either go back out and then I don't know what. Like, I'm still going to have to come back in and get them. It's just prolonging it, or start trying to take out part of the structure on the side and it's fibro, and I'm like, this is a nightmare. I'm laying there on my back, so I remember it. Ringing fire brigade comms. Can you hear me? They're like, yeah, can you speak up? Not really. I'm a bit compressed in here. Hang on, I have to move my face mask. I tell them what I'm doing, and they're like, so you just going to meet us out in the street? No, I'm under here now.
I'm trapped. By definition, I'm stuck.
Trapped. There was one I was stuck on. I had to ring police rescue squad. I made sure I rang the truck. I didn't want it to go through radio. Asked for a specific person. They're like, yeah, I'll get him. Yes. Where are you? I'm like, I'm at this address. Can you come down? I've been getting a cat out, but I've slipped on a weird angle into the wall space through the roof. I need someone else to give me a hand to get out because I can't get the cat and get myself out at the same time. So I'm literally in this roof cavity, my arm down the wall, can't hold the cat, but can't get myself out at the same time.
How doesn't this guy have his own reality show?
How is he not dead? Is my question.
So from that, there was other things. Like, I had a lot of exposure to the police. I think was a good thing. Moved down the path of on warrants and certain things like that when there's animals to limit the risk to themselves. And having to shoot anyone's pets, they started using us to tranquilise and, restrain animals at addresses. Which
now, what do you? I know you use darts a lot, but what do you call it when you don't use when you've got a ferocious dog that's there as a guard dog for a drug house or some other bad guy's operation? What do you call it?
Oh.
When you bring a dog out without a post?
What do I call it?
You call it talking them out,
yeah.
Like a negotiator. I've seen you do it. There's this dog, and you're looking at it going, yeah, that thing's that's a killer. I know I like dogs and I've got big dogs and I've seen it. Like, you've been on a couple of my search runs, like, oh, that's going to go real bad. I'm like, hey boys, I got this. Hey man, it's your little brother here. I need some help. Yeah, no worries. How vicious? I'm like, man, this thing is deadly, mate. It is deadly. We're toast. Yeah, no worries. He walks, hey buddy, talks to it. He's like, do you want a post? Do you want someone with a gun? Nah. Like 5 minutes later, he comes out. I'm like, how the hell did you do that? I talked to him out.
There was a dog a couple of weeks ago. It's not a legal matter, so I can talk about it. Dog was in an apartment, ground floor apartment. People had a mobility scooter in there. There's 2 occupants. The owner's not there at the time. The owner's incarcerated. Dog didn't like the reversing beep on a mobility scooter.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not people were putting it in reverse to see what the dog's reaction was or not, either way, this dog, he's like big, he's well over 50 kilos. He takes offence to it when they put it in reverse and decides to eat the occupants. Compound fracture of the left arm, the only thing holding the arm on is flesh.
Yep.
They call me out, there's a bit of a standoff, the police are outside, the counsellor there, because we provide services to councils. The dog, there was blood everywhere outside the apartment. The dog's gone, staged up on his lounge. He's just sitting there. Pop the door open. The police are talking, all right, we're going to get our firearms out. It's all good. You don't need to be scared. We're professionals. I'm like, I'm good. Just nominate one person to shoot it if you're going to need to shoot it. If it decides to get off and bite me, just not all three of you, because I'll wind up dead and it won't be from the dog.
Yeah.
And everyone's
Wise.
looking around
Yeah.
like, it's all good. Pop the door open, have a look in the lounge. Okay, I can dart in there. So I go out. We'd already gone to the vet and picked up some sedation, whatever. I come back, pop the door open. I'm looking, hey, buddy. Done. He gets off the lounge the minute he gets a dart in him, comes over the door and wants to talk. So everyone started back up. I'm on the other side of the door and crouched down. It's all right, mate. It's all right, buddy, you know. And he's just sitting at the door looking at me, and not nice dog. He's just having a bad day.
Bad day for someone.
But I'm just there to do a job. I don't know. To me, he was an alright dog.
Yeah.
You
But
turn
he was
a
having a bad
Cujo into Benji.
And then he
He's a
wandered
dog
off.
whisperer. That's a
Yeah.
fun-
Once
the dog whisperer.
once the darts started kicking, he took himself off to the bathroom and passed out in there. The other thing I have to factor in, you don't know what language people speak to their dogs in. It sounds weird. I'll turn up to a job, the police, and I'm like, what language do the occupants speak? I speak English. They may be spoken to. We had a dog years ago that came from a grow house. Dog only understood
Cannabis
Vietnamese.
house, for those people listening who don't know.
All this dog understood was Vietnamese. That was it. He'd never been, and even how he was fed, he wasn't fed like, he was fed, on something. He didn't like eating out of his bowl. He didn't like,
Yeah.
So there's all these quirky things. He was in exceptional condition. He was just, he'd stand there and just stare at you, or like stare through you, because you could talk to him. He didn't understand a damn thing.
Yeah, things you don't consider, right? Amazing.
Yeah. So, whilst you're in the RSPCA, you end up starting your own business, which is Total Fauna Solutions. Tell me a little bit about that journey. How did that come about?
So whilst at the RSPCA, one of my functions I performed was auditing government vertebrate pest management projects. So whether it be national parks or local land services or contractors on their behalf that were out conducting vertebrate pest management, being contract shooting of pest species, we'll go out and audit their programs for humaneness and ensure it was being done appropriately. Well, as a result of that, I got a fair bit of exposure to that. I was already the range officer and one of the firearms instructors for the RSPCA, and was ultimately invited if I wanted to, down the track, a number of years later, if I wanted to jump on board one of the crews. I declared that, stopped doing the auditing. At first didn't really have an interest in starting anything myself, but then thought it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a plan B, because if one day you just never know what's going to happen. Or basically I was like, my bucket gets full one day and I can't do this anymore, what else am I going to do? Or I just don't want to do that. You never know what tomorrow's going to bring. So started the business in 2011, left RSPCA halfway through 2018. I already had a very small client base, so they were servicing, I was able to service their needs, and then it just started to expand from there. So we service only government and corporate. Now, night shift, we provide vertebrate pest management / contract shooting operations for clients, and day shift is pretty much, technical animal rescue, animal relocation, animal capture, handling, animal transport. You name it, we'll move it. If it's something someone can't get out from somewhere or can't get near, we contract to veterinary clinics as well. So the vets will be like, I've got a problem with this animal. We're not encroaching on their work, we aren't vets. So they're the type of services we provide during the day versus what we provide in the night. We're contracted to a number of councils, some of which are 24 hours a day on call, to cater for any dangerous animals, containment and transport. And we cater for native animals as well, injured native animals assessment, capture, euthanasia, and the like.
But you also do everything in between, and I think that's probably why you've been successful, is obviously you've added so many strings to your bow. I don't think you ever turned down any job that came in and said, that's too hard for me, or I can't do that. But, as you said before, you don't see a lot of guys that are able to work with animals that are out running flood boats. And interestingly enough, after they've used you a number of times, I notice a couple of different agencies have put their hands up for animal-related agencies. I'll leave it at that. Don't have anyone to drive the boats, but we want the funding for a boat. they put that out there, but you've been providing that service. You do captive population surveys and management, and
yeah, so like we provide drone capability as well for clients. I've been very lucky. I don't say no to anything pretty much. I hire my staff are all experts in what they do because I don't lie. I go back to other agencies and hire people that are suitably qualified or the best in their field from that.
Yeah.
So my boat operators that I use, everyone else's worst day during the flood is their normal work day.
Yeah.
So I try to tap into what everyone else's expertise is. And sometimes when, if someone leaves another agency, they're like, where am I going to use this? I may not be able to use them all the time, but I'll make sure that their services are rewarded when I do need to use them. And it's something I'm not having to get them training in, and they may only be able to train in that once a month or once every 3 months. These people come with that expertise that I can tap in from somewhere else that they've obtained that training somewhere else. It's a cheat in a way, but...
Well, I think the leading there is, one of our recent podcasts was on just what do you do when you leave the cops? Now, I know you've got a number of former frontline workers, and I think still people that serve at times that you've got ex-ambos or current serving ambos that work on the team, because part of your shooting operations you need to have first aid qualified people. Your shooting ops, I think you've got people from former police officers. You had guys that have to do driving and things, like obviously you're running a crew of drivers, so I know you've had former highway guys and people that know, got that four-wheel drive qualification. Because when you leave the cops, like we said last time, you have so many skill sets, but you just got to find not only the right thing for you, but the right work environment. And I think one of the keys to your success is we've just discussed, in my personal opinion, first of all, you always, if someone's got a problem, you fix it. And the MacGyver story with the plumber chick is a testament to that. But the fact that when a problem comes up, you don't say, no, I don't do that. You say, all right, I'll work with you to solve problems, which is really good. But I think it's also because, like, for example, in the vertebrate pest management space, there's a lot of guys, I'm a hunter, I'm going to go professional hunt. You're not a hunter.
I've never been hunting one day in my life.
Yeah.
But, we do provide a very niche service. It's not money orientated for me, so we don't work on when we're doing that, we don't provide a service on a per head basis. It's a contract, and I pick and choose my clients.
Yeah.
If I don't want to do it, I don't do it.
But you understand you're doing something from an ecological and animal welfare perspective.
Yeah.
Whereas, and I've worked on your crew, I've seen the way you operate. I've seen photos from other guys that've got, they're contracted shooter, they've got their gun there and they're, kind of wearing their cowboy hat and they're like, look at this. Whereas everything you do, which you have to do for the contract, is very scientific. This is the location, this is what we, there's no glory.
I don't have anyone on the crew that's that mentality. And it's, I respect anyone else who wants to go hunting. That's their, background, or they enjoy that. It's just not for me.
There's no joy in taking a life for you.
No, not for me. It doesn't. I suppose maybe other people see it as that's a recreational thing. Well, it's not mine. I don't do it on a weekend. I get paid to do it. But with that being said, I'd like to tap into other people. So there's some other people at the moment we're looking at putting on. That's their area of expertise. So, and so I always try and make it a we thing, not a me thing. You're only as good as the people around you. I want everyone that I'm working with to be happy, good in their role, feel supported, and want to come to work and experience whatever it might be. Even during the floods, some of the guys that were on the ground were a little bit new, but I gave them exposure, and they're equipped to deal with that next time.
Yep.
So,
would you? Just before we wrap up, would you do it again? Would you go back and, knowing what you know now about jumping out of the RSPCA into business, and well, first of all, would you be an RSPCA inspector again? And you're happy for you to say no comment, because that could be a long response. But also, would you go into small business again?
So I would be an RSPCA inspector again. It was a great role for me. It was literally like it was. The only downside was I think I made it like my life. Like it was everything to me. So I don't necessarily think that's the most healthy scenario for anyone. It cost me a lot, and I'm not blaming anyone for that. That was my choice to do that. So yeah, it cost me a lot, but I do it again. I believed in what I did, and I think everyone else is doing the role. They're doing it for the right reason. I think there's certain reasons why they might be hamstrung. You know, like you sit there, you go. The inspectors put in the effort, whether it be from RSPCA or Animal Welfare League, because they're in the same boat. They put in the effort to bring matters before the court, and you just feel let down. And times change. Like it comes down to what's popular at the time. Is this, is something that was big in the media that might get a huge amount of attention, and something comes out of that. But the next 5 jobs, they don't get a great result.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would do it again. I'd probably do things a bit differently. I wouldn't have got the experience or the exposure. Maybe I would have left a bit earlier. Like I'm happy doing what I'm doing now, within reason. Work for yourself, they said. It'll be great, they said, until you're doing it. And I didn't think it'd go to where it did, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, it's still like 2 a.m. the phone's going.
Yeah.
That's what my life is. I didn't think it would necessarily be that. I'm not unhappy about it. It's just I'll just go with the flow. What would I say to anyone else? If anyone was leaving another agency and looking at animal welfare, I think it's a good role, but there's challenges with it. Do I think it's any safer out there for anyone working in it and rolling one up to houses? No. It's the same, if not worse, probably. I don't know. I don't really miss that. It caused me a lot of anxiety when I was in a supervising role, and even when I wasn't in a supervising role, knowing that there was staff going out, or if I'd worked in there and knew that area was bad, and we had intel, to know that one of my colleagues was going somewhere that I may have dealt with before, that they're going to go to because they're working that patch these days, there was a sense of anxiety. There wasn't a lot of us, so everyone knew what everyone else was doing. So it's not a great feeling knowing that maybe someone will go to work and something bad will happen. In the end, when I left, I was wearing a stab vest to work.
Yeah.
Expect the worst, hope for the best.
Well, look, the best advice, I think you got me into security before I joined the cops to get me through uni, and some of the best advice you gave me as a young guy was there's always one more person than you expect, and there's always someone better, and that served me very well through the cops and through security, and even now when we deal with some unhappy people. So
And just be humble.
very
I
true.
don't know everything. I'll just talk to everyone the same, and
Humility is an underrated
Yeah.
characteristic
very true.
in a lot of people these days. Well, look, I wanted to thank you for coming on.
No, thank you for the invite.
Thank you to you, and if you're looking for Slade services, you'll find Total Fauna Solutions online. Or basically, there's a lot of government agencies that work with Slade, so just reach out to your local council, and if they're not using him, probably ask why. And look, if you can't find him, feel free to contact us, and we'll put you in touch with him.
And if you're in the job and you got a problem overnight or something, information's free.
Yeah.
You can ring, send us a photo of what you're looking at. We'll give you some advice.
Actually, if you're in the job, understand Slade does training for not just Fire and Rescue New South Wales, or has done previously, still does training for New South Wales Police, and probably any other government organisation that runs across animals in their day-to-day line of work. So if you're looking for an expert that you need, and you need some training on that, or you got a training day coming up, if you're in Edo, feel free to reach out. He's a wealth of knowledge and plenty of good stories. We haven't even skimmed the surface today. But Danny, who are we sponsored by today, as always?
We are sponsored by the wonderful team at IC Technology. So that's ictechnology.com.au for your IT needs. Slade, also, mate, from me. It's a pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much for having
Mate,
me.
it's just wonderful stories, and I think, we've got to have him back. I need to have some more put shit on Anthony stories as well.
Oh,
So
that's
we,
easy.
mate, we'll create our own series.
I'm not going
We'll do a whole series on that. That's not an
I think we're running out of time, guys.
I'm just going to say, I'm a bit worried about opening that door though.
Yeah, and also as always, look, if you're looking for investigators, you'll find us at privateinvestigatorsydney.com.au. And if you want to reach out to us with any of your questions, any concerns, comments, or anything else, or if you just want to complain that we should be cancelled,
don't do that.
No, don't do that. Just feel free to send that to us in a private email.
Jenny's like, no!
The producer's like, no! Shut up, Macklin! Actually, that's a resounding theme in my life. Shut up, yeah.
That could be the name of our podcast.
Well, team, I hope you've enjoyed it. And look, we definitely think about trying to get you back on at some point. And thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And yeah, have a good day.